Evening. Welcome to the Amateur Astronomy Digital VoiceNet here on the Quadnet Array. My name is Jason and my call sign is N8XE. This net is a directed net and we will rotate based on check-ins. We will have a topic selected each week to be discussed. The topics will be of interest to amateur astronomers, as well as topics that involve both amateur astronomy and amateur radio. On the first Wednesday of every month, the net will be focused on helping those who are new to amateur astronomy or those that are interested in getting started. Tonight we are going to be talking about Galaxy season. When you check in, state your call sign, name, and your location. Please allow 3 to 5 seconds between transmissions to allow Quadnet to reset and allow other stations to check in. At this time, we will now begin taking stations that are listening or checking in and out, or just listening only at this time. This is N8XE Net Control.
This is KE0Z Victor Delta, KE0Z Victor Delta.
This is Victor Echo 6 Hotel Yankee, John in Calgary, Alberta. Kilo Foxtrot 0 Charlie Golf Papa, Kilo Fox 0 Charlie Golf Papa, Brian in Iowa. November 5 Sierra Tango Oscar Mike, Oklahoma City.
All right, we have KE0ZVD, Jason in Missouri, VE6HY, John in Alberta, Canada, KF0CGP, we got Brian in Iowa, and N5STO, Mike in Oklahoma City. Got you all checked in and out, listening only. Any other stations that are checking in and out, listening only. This is N8XE Net Control for the Amateur Astronomy Digital VoiceNet here on the Quadnet Array.
Kilo Alpha 9 Whiskey Delta X-Ray, Bernie, Metro, Wisconsin. Kilo Alpha 9 Whiskey Delta X-Ray.
Alrighty, we got Kilo Alpha 9 Whiskey Delta X-Ray, and I think the name was Bernie in Wisconsin. Got you checked in and out, or listening only. So far we got 5 stations checked in. Anybody else that would like to check in and out, listen only with the Amateur Astronomy Digital VoiceNet here on the Quadnet Array. This is N8XE Net Control.
Net Control, this is Kilo Bravo 3, Zulu India Kilo, Carmine in Wilmington, Delaware.
All right, KB3, ZIK, Carmine in Delaware. Got you checked in and out, listening only. We don't get many stations from Delaware, so I'm glad to have you here on the Quadnet Array. All right, let's go ahead and see if anybody is checking in to participate tonight. Again, our topic is Galaxy season or Galaxy hunting season. We have deer season, duck season, rabbit season, duck season, rabbit season, rabbit season, duck season, but we're going to be talking about Galaxy season. So if you'd like to participate tonight, please send your call sign, your name, and your location, and we will get you checked in as a participant this evening. This is N8XE Net Control for the Amateur Astronomy Digital Voice Net here on the Quadnet Array.
N8GU, Bob in Plain City, Ohio. And I have space news and a trivia question. WA4GUD, Dave in Maryland. W9BFZ, Dave in Illinois. November 9 Alpha Golf Charlie N9 AGC, Greg, Cleveland, Ohio. Very nice.
Net Control, this is Kilo Charlie Niner. Mike Radio is Emil in Wisconsin, just listening tonight.
All right, let's make sure I have everybody correct here. We got N8GU Bob, who's up here in Ohio. He's normally in Florida, but he is here in Ohio this time. WA4GUD Dave in Maryland. W9BFC, good to hear you there, Dave, in Illinois. N9AGC Greg in Cleveland, Ohio. We got you all checked in as participating, as well as KB9ZKA Bill in Illinois. Got KC9MRW Neil in Wisconsin. Got you checked in and out listening. And last but definitely not least, KD0HGI Frank in the wonderful state of Nebraska. It's great to hear you in there, Frank. If anybody wants to check in, please state your call sign, your name, and location, and whether you're going to be participating tonight or just checking in and out, listening only. Again, your call sign, name, location, and whether you're going to be checking in and out, listening, or participating? Let me know so I can get you logged in. This is N8XE Net Control for the Amateur Astronomy Digital Voice Net here on the Quadnet Array.
November 5, Echo X-Ray. Name is Danny, and I'm located in Weatherford, Texas, and I'm checking in and out, listening only.
All right, November 5, Echo X-Ray. Danny in the great state of Texas. Got you checked in and out, listening only. Anybody else? Last call before we get started with our topic tonight. Again, the topic is Galaxy hunting season. I'm sure several of us on the Quadnet tonight may be listening, like to hunt things, like you go out hunting deer or pheasant or turkeys or whatever have you, rabbits, squirrels. Well, some of us astronomers like to hunt galaxies, and instead of using a firearm, we like to use telescopes. So, if you'd like to check in and participate, just let me know your call sign, your name, and your location, and whether you're going to be participating tonight or if you're going to be in and out listening only. Last call for stations. This is N8XE Net Control for the Amateur Astronomy Digital Voice Net here on the Quadnet Array.
W8CRO Whiskey 8 Charlie Romeo Oscar. My name is Bob. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. Listening only, please.
All righty, Whiskey 8, Charlie Romeo Oscar. Bob in Cincinnati, Ohio, home of the very awesome observatory, the Cincinnati Observatory. So, got you checked in and out, listening only. All right, so thank you, everybody. We have 15 check-ins tonight. We have 6 participants, so that's awesome. So if anybody is listening and would like to recheck or check in to participate tonight, just let me know. All right, let's go ahead and pass it to NAGU with our space news and our knowledge question for tonight. So NAGU, N8XE, go ahead there, Bob. Over to you.
Good evening to you and everybody else in the net. We're in the process of packing up our house. We have a closing on Friday, and movers are coming in on Friday, Saturday, and we'll be moving to our permanent new house down in Fort Myers, Florida. I am really tired of packing, so I thought I would use this opportunity to stop on by the net. And by the way, I did find out from the admins of the Quadnet Array that sometimes if people are too quick on the push to talk, that it causes the wires X segment of the Quadnet Array to get goofed up. So I will be leaving longer pauses in between clicks, FYI. So anyway, stand by for some space news. Well, for those of you who may have been in New England this past Sunday, in particular Vermont, on Sunday at about 5:38 in the 5:38 in the evening, there were a lot of folks that saw this huge fireball streaking across the sky. It first became visible when the fireball was 52 miles above the Mount Mansfield State Forest, and it moved down by gravity through the upper atmosphere 33 miles, and the fireball was traveling at 42,000 miles per hour. And people thought that a big bomb went off because this thing sent shockwaves all throughout Vermont, and people's houses shook, and in some areas glass broke. It was kind of interesting. This was an asteroid type meteor. Stand by for more. It was reported by 3 different stations in the Vermont area that the meteor, as it came through the atmosphere, released the equivalent amount of energy of 440 pounds of TNT. And interestingly, scientists, based on speed and distance, estimated that the object only weighed 10 pounds and had a diameter of only 6 inches. So, imagine something a little bit bigger than a softball cruising through our upper atmosphere and causing sonic booms and scaring a lot of people. So stand by for what's in the sky this week to look at. This is NHEU. Well, for those of you who like to get up just before actual sunrise, it's been occurring for the past week and will continue on this week. But tomorrow morning, pre-dawn, you'll get to see the old moon, which is going to be just above the horizon, and it's going to be below Mercury. And one of the neat things is the fact that in the pre-dawn sky, starting from the horizon, going up, you will see Mercury and Jupiter and Saturn. And also there's a star out there that you could also see, Copernicus. So get up early in the morning. Maybe tomorrow you'll see the moon, Mercury, Jupiter, Copernicus, and Saturn in that order, from going from low to high. We have a new moon on Saturday, March the 13th, and it will occur about 5:21 a.m. Eastern Time. And on Sunday at 2 a.m., March 14th, we switch over to daylight saving time. So don't forget that the net, which begins 9 p.m. Eastern Time, which is the equivalent to 0200 UTC, after Sunday will still be at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, but UTC will be 0100, so that happens on Sunday. And then on Tuesday, we're going to have a crescent moon, and right next to the crescent moon and a little above, if you've got really good binoculars or if you have a telescope, you'll get to see the planet Uranus, or as some people call it, Uranus. And it'll be pretty visible because the crescent moon will only be 12% illuminated, so you won't have glare out, and you will be able to get to see the planet Uranus, or Uranus. And since we're talking about Uranus, that is what the knowledge question is going to be for this evening. So stand by for the knowledge question. This is NHU. So here it comes. The planet Uranus was discovered in 1781. That's when it was first noted by astronomers, in 1781. So, 252 years later, in the year 2033, what very unique thing is going to happen to Uranus in the year 2033, 252 years after its discovery in 1781. Well, there you have it. Back to net control from N8GU.
Alrighty, Bob. Thank you so much for the space news and, of course, the knowledge question for this evening. And just a repeat of the knowledge question, what unique thing is going to happen with the planet Uranus in 2033? That is interesting. I'm going to take a stab at it, but I don't know if I know what specifically is going to happen. All right. Let's go ahead and take a break for any final calls or any check-ins before we get started with our topic. And the topic is galaxy hunting season. So if you'd like to check in, please state your call sign, your name, and location, and whether you want to check in and out and listen only or participate tonight, especially if you want to take a crack at the knowledge question. This is N8XE Net Control. If you'd like to check in, please do so now.
This is K6JLE, name is Paul in Atherton, California. Would like to just listen.
All right, hey Paul, KG6JLE, got you checked in and out, listening only tonight. All right, let's go to our topic for this evening. As I mentioned, we are going to be talking about galaxy hunting season. So some of us, we hunt turkey, we hunt deer, we hunt rabbits, squirrels, some may hunt a possum. That's a joke. But astronomers like to hunt galaxies during the spring season in the northern hemisphere. And why is that? Let me take a break here. So in the summertime, if you look towards the south at about midnight in late July, or about July, you're looking towards the center of the Milky Way. Now, opposite of that, if you're looking around midnight in January, you're looking away from the center of the galaxy towards the between the constellations of Orion and Canis Major. So in the summertime, you're looking towards the core of the galaxy. In the wintertime, you're looking towards the edge of the galaxy. So in the springtime and in the autumn time, you're looking away or perpendicular to the plane of the galaxy. Now, both the springtime and the autumn time, there are far more galaxies than in the the summer and winter. However, the spring has more galaxies that we can easily observe as amateur astronomers than the autumn time. And one of the reasons why that is there is a big cluster of galaxies called the Virgo Cluster. So the constellation of Virgo, and the Virgo Cluster exists between the constellations of Virgo and Leo. There's a lot of galaxies. If you point your telescope towards the center of Leo and Virgo, you will run into a lot of different galaxies that you can see with a telescope. Again, we're referring to the northern hemisphere. The southern hemisphere, they can see galaxies too, but you're going to be seeing galaxies below the Milky Way versus above the Milky Way from the perspective of the Earth. So, if you look kind of straight up in the northern hemisphere, you'll see the Big Dipper, also called Ursa Major, almost straight up. And there are some interesting galaxies in Ursa Major. One of my favorite pairings of galaxies is called Bode's Galaxy and the Cigar Galaxy. Now, that is M81, that's Bode's Galaxy, and M82, the Cigar Galaxy. Interesting thing about the Cigar Galaxy is it is undergoing, I'm thinking of the term, but, a starburst galaxy. There's a lot of stars being born in the Cigar Galaxy, also known as M82. You can see M81 and M82 in a 6-inch telescope in a single eyepiece view. So M81 and M82 is a very interesting pair of galaxies in Ursa Major or the Big Dipper. Just below the bowl of the Big Dipper, you'll see a planetary nebula called the Owl Nebula, and in the same view, in a wide field eyepiece and a 6-inch telescope, also in a pair of binoculars, you'll see the Owl Nebula, M97, and M108. So M97 is a planetary nebula, and M108 is a spiral galaxy. Okay, so if you look at the Big Dipper and you look at the handle of the Big Dipper, just below the star of the handle of the Big Dipper, you have the famous Whirlpool Galaxy, also known as M51. Now, the Whirlpool Galaxy, if you just look that up in Google, it is an interacting pair between a spiral galaxy and an irregular galaxy. Some say that it was a spiral galaxy at one time, but you can see the interaction between these two galaxies. So M51, or the Whirlpool Galaxy, is a nice target to look at with a telescope. Above the bowl of the Big Dipper, there is a wonderful large galaxy called the Pinwheel. This is called M101, or the Pinwheel, and in a really dark sky and large telescopes, you can actually see the spiral arms of the Pinwheel Galaxy. And with a 6-inch telescope under really dark skies, you can also see the spiral arms of the Whirlpool Galaxy. So we have the galaxy pair of M81 and M82, the Owl Nebula, which is not a galaxy but a planetary nebula, and that is called M97, and a spiral galaxy called M108. M31 the Whirlpool, and M101 the Pinwheel. As you go south from the handle of the Big Dipper, you run into a small constellation called Canis Venatici, or I call it Canis Venatici. This constellation is the hunting dogs. There is a really neat galaxy called the Whale Galaxy that is known as NGC 4631, and it's pretty neat. Also in Canis Venatici, there is a galaxy called the Hockey Stick. I do not have the NGC number, but if you do a Google search for the Hockey Stick Galaxy, you will see pictures of that. And I know our Canadian friends would enjoy knowing that there's a galaxy called the Hockey Stick. And by the way, I'm a big hockey fan myself. As you keep going south, you will run into a constellation called Coma Berenices. And Coma Berenices has a couple very interesting galaxies. In fact, one of them is doing some astrophotography with this past weekend on Saturday night. The first one is NGC 4565. That is called the Needle Galaxy. The interesting thing about the Needle Galaxy is it's a spiral galaxy like our own, but if you look at it, it's like you're looking at the galaxy edge on. So the spiral galaxy was, if you think of it as a frisbee, the Needle Galaxy, you're looking at the frisbee edge on. So it's very straight. It's not very big in the eyepiece, but it's pretty interesting to look at. Also in Coma Berenices, you have what is called the Black Eye Galaxy. This is M64. The interesting thing about the Black Eye Galaxy is that if a spiral galaxy is a frisbee, if you tilt it slightly towards yourself, the near side of the galaxy has a lot of dark dust or a dusty cloud that kind of obscures the stars in the galaxy. So that's when they call it the Black Eye Galaxy. It's pretty neat to look at in a 6-inch telescope. The larger the telescope, the more pronounced this dark dust lane is on this galaxy. Again, that is called the Black Eye Galaxy, also known as M64. If we keep going south from Coma Berenices, we will run into the constellations of Virgo and Leo. Leo would be on the western side, Virgo is on the eastern side. Between those two constellations, you have what is called the Virgo Cluster. As a matter of fact, our local group is heading towards the Virgo Cluster, and someday in the far future, we will be a part of that. So the Virgo Cluster consists of several galaxies that you can see in a telescope. But the most pronounced feature is something called Markarian's chain. And there are several galaxies that you can look at that you can kind of follow with your telescope. It's like a chain that curves up of galaxies that you can see a bunch of galaxies in that field of view. It's called the Markarian's chain. Towards the bottom of Virgo, there is the famous Sombrero Galaxy. This is also called M104. This is a very bright galaxy, if you can see clearly in a 6-inch telescope. And you can see how, if you look at pictures, you can see how it has this extreme dark lane that goes across the core. And again, it's like if a spiral galaxy is a frisbee and you tilt it slightly forward, you would see the core of the galaxy, but you'll see a dark lane that goes across it. And if you look at various pictures, a Hubble Space Telescope had a famous picture of the Sombrero Galaxy, but it's pretty neat to look at in a 6-inch telescope or larger. So if we go west into the constellation of Leo, there is a really neat triplet galaxy. They're not close together, but from our perspective, they look like it. There is something called the Leo triplet, and that is consisting of M65, M66, and an edge-on spiral called NGC 3628. And it's a pretty neat collection of galaxies. There's 3 of them. In a wide field eyepiece with a 6-inch telescope or larger, you'll see all 3 telescopes in the same field of view. So there's a bunch more galaxies that I can mention in all of these constellations, like M95, M96 in Leo, the Sunflower Galaxy M63 in Canis Venatici, and several others. But the reason why we can see so many galaxies in the springtime is we're looking away from the Milky Way. In fact, if you drew a line through the core of the Milky Way, the north side, and again, this is from our perspective on Earth, if we're talking about the northern hemisphere versus the southern hemisphere, if you drew a line through the center of the galaxy and drew the line up, you would see that line intersect in the sky, in the spring sky. And I think it's between Canis Venatici and Coma Berenices. So we are looking away from the galaxy, and this is why we see so many galaxies in the springtime sky in the northern hemisphere. And the reason why we see so many of these galaxies is because we're looking towards the Virgo Cluster of galaxies. For the southern hemisphere, of course, this would be the autumn sky, and there are several galaxies in the southern hemisphere to look at. I'm primarily talking about the northern hemisphere. Well, I hope you learned something new about galaxy hunting. Us amateur astronomers, whenever springtime comes around, we like to get our telescopes out and observe galaxies because of where we are in the Milky Way galaxy and the northern hemisphere. It makes it quite enjoyable to take our telescopes out and hunt down a few galaxies in the springtime. All right, well, let's go ahead and pass it to our first participant tonight, and that is Bob in 8GU. So, Bob, we'll pass it to you.
Yeah, once again, good evening to everybody on the net. Well, galaxies are rather interesting, and I think that will probably be one of the things I miss from when I had my telescope a few years ago as a trial. When I looked at some galaxies with my 15 by 70 astronomy binoculars, it's not quite the same as looking at a galaxy with, a telescope. And 6 inches seems to be kind of the minimum to really appreciate what's going on. I do have a question for you, Jason, in regards to spiral galaxies. What is it that makes the spiral galaxies go counterclockwise? So that's not a trivia question for everybody. It's a question. It's for you. I'm curious if you have an answer. And what's interesting is if we were in some far-off galaxy and we were looking back on the Milky Way, what would we appear to them? Is our Milky Way a spiral galaxy or disorganized? So you might want to comment on that. And I have one more comment before I go. Stand by. The closest galaxy to us, I believe, is M31 Andromeda. And astronomers feel that in about 4 billion years from now, that's a really long time, 4 billion years from now, that the Milky Way galaxy is going to collide with the neighboring spiral Andromeda galaxy, and it's going to cause our sun and our solar system to be in a much different position within the Milky Way. But scientists say we don't need to worry about when the collision happens because our solar system it's not like we're going to get destroyed or anything, but it's kind of an interesting thing, and wherever our spirit might be in about 5 billion years, we might be able to witness Andromeda and our Milky Way crashing into each other. Back to you. This is N8GU.
Bob, I missed your second question, but I do have an answer for the first question. So not all galaxies rotate counterclockwise. It's about a 50-50 split between clockwise galaxies rotating clockwise versus galaxies rotating counterclockwise. There are some examples where the arms do not trail the rotation of the core, and astronomers think that may be because of interactions between other galaxies. So not all galaxies rotate in counterclockwise direction. It just seems that way. As far as the second question, I didn't quite get it. So, Bob, go ahead and answer it again, or again. N8GU, N8XE.
Yeah, the second part of my question was, if we were in a planet somewhere in some, let's say we were on Andromeda, for example, and we're looking back on the Milky Way, what would our Milky Way look like? Would we be a spiral galaxy, and would we be spinning around in a counterclockwise fashion or clockwise? That was my question. Back to you from N8GU.
Alrighty. Well, so that is a good question. So if someone was on a planet in Andromeda and they were looking back at the Milky Way, they would see a spiral, or more accurately, a barred spiral galaxy. Astronomers have determined that our Milky Way is definitely a spiral galaxy. There is some, not debate, but there are some questions whether it is a barred spiral or a spiral galaxy. The consensus is that we have a small bar in the center of our galaxy. Now, which direction does the Milky Way rotate? We have found out that the Milky Way rotates in a clockwise direction. So, and they've determined this by various methods like spectrometry, or spectroscopy, I should say, and also interferometry. using a concept of parallax in proper motion of stars. We have satellites out there that are measuring how fast stars are moving. Now, the sun is moving along with these other stars, but based on the direction other stars are moving and the way our solar system and the sun is moving, they have determined that our Milky Way rotates in a clockwise direction. Now, of course, that depends on if you're looking towards or looking from the upper part of the Milky Way and the bottom part of the Milky Way. But from the perspective of Andromeda, we would be rotating in a clockwise direction. So let's pass it back to you, Bob. Hopefully I answered your question. N8GU, N8XE.
Yes, you did. Back to net control from N8GU. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm glad I answered your question there. Had to do a little research on that, but found the answer. Let's pass it on to Dave, WA4GUD and N8XE. Over to you, Dave.
Well, good evening, Jason on the net, WA4GUD here. Very interesting talk on the galaxies. Probably need to go downstairs and get out my sky and telescope celestial globe. And I was following along with you and looking at the pile of galaxies that show up just above Virgo. Makes me really anxious to get back out there again. It's been a long time since I've been out, particularly in a place where I could see galaxies. But I think my favorite is a Whirlpool. I did see that with a very nice 8-inch Celestron Edge HD when we were out at the Texas Star Party, and in that 8-inch telescope, you could clearly see the spiral arms of the Whirlpool, and you could see its companion that was getting gradually unraveled. Also, you mentioned the Leo triplet, the 65, 66, and so forth. There's a recent article in Sky and Telescope about this. It was really interesting. And they talked about how those are interacting. And if you look at the picture that they have there, you can see that the outer extents of the NGC, and I think it's M65 and the NGC in particular, are getting drawn together. So they're a long ways apart. I mean, the distance between those galaxies is pretty substantial, but it's impressive to see how much of an effect those galaxies have on each other. I don't have any ideas on the question for tonight. I don't know what's special about 2033. I mean, if I have to offer a guess, I'll say maybe Uranus is in opposition. I don't know what other neat things it does. But that's about all from here. I'm looking forward to watching at least a little bit of the Messier Marathon live at the Lowell Observatory, and then hoping things clear up here, and maybe we can get out and do a little bit of observing. So back to that.
Dave, I tell you what, thank you so much for mentioning that last week, that the Lowell Observatory is going to be doing a virtual Messier Marathon. So for those that are listening to the net tonight, if you would like, Dave posted a link to Lowell Observatory for the Messier Marathon that's going to happen on Saturday, this coming Saturday. So if you are not a part of our Facebook group, be sure to look us up on Facebook. Look up Amateur Space Astronomy Space Digital Space Voice Space Net, and you will find our Facebook group, and we will make sure that you get joined to the group. All you got to do is just ask to join, and we will have you join us. And we post some interesting links. one of the links that Dave recently posted. Man, I'm really screwed up tonight. Maybe I want to purchase a telescope. But if you look that up, he has a link to that observing event, a virtual observing event done by the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona. All right, let's pass it to W9 BFZ and 8XE. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Jason. Not a whole lot to add to the actual conversation this evening, but I did want to take my normal joking stab at the knowledge question. 2033 will be the year that the International Astronomical Union has slated to decide that Uranus isn't a planet either, followed shortly by Neptune in 2067. As far as galaxy hunting goes, I'll be honest with you, that's something I haven't really done a whole lot of. It just never seems to be that I have the opportunity to get my telescope out at the optimum times for that. I mean, obviously I'll look at whatever I can find, but, normally in spring and fall I've traditionally been fairly busy, although I did get my telescope collimated and cleaned and all of that, and it's ready to go for this spring once we get some nice enough weather to go out observing. The only nights we've had clear enough to go out, it was too cold. So that's all I've got for this go around. I'll send it back to Net Control and 8XE from W9BFZ.
W9BFZ and 8XE. Yeah, well, I hope that you get out and do some galaxy hunting. Last year, my wife and I rented a cabin in a darker site here in Ohio. In Ohio, it's called the Hocking Hills region. And I took my 105 millimeter apochromatic refractor telescope out with me, and I did some galaxy hunting from the hills or the Hocking Hills. It was a lot of fun. I also took my KX3 and my buddy pole. That was one of the first times I got to use my buddy pole, and really worked well. Had fun working stations all around the United States, and it was a good time. So I combined two hobbies into one. When we were down there, I took my portable ham radio station, and I took my telescope with me as well. All right, let's pass it on to Greg. Greg, I don't know if you were just checking in and out, listening only, or if you were participating tonight. So I'm going to pass it to you in 9 AGC N8XE. Over to you, Greg.
Okay, Jason and gang. Yeah, I didn't want to say you didn't want to talk because you never know when a question come up. Well, my guess on the question is that it's going to be the closest to Earth, just a wild shot of the dark. Anyway, I noticed earlier you made a comment about being into astrophotography. I'm relatively new to this. I've had a telescope for a long time, but put it away because here in Cleveland there's no dark skies. Well, now that I'm retired, we bought a motorhome. We're going to take off and go out west this summer, and I'll take my telescope with me. And I need to talk to somebody who knows about astrophotography to know which I should do for the best, not too horribly expensive camera to go that direction. And we're going to go have some fun rediscovering astrophotography again in my AGC.
Oh, well, fine business there, Greg. Well, if you want to know more about astrophotography, let's see. Are you on Facebook at all?
Yes, I am. Not a lot, but some.
Okay, well, if you want, search for our group. It's Amateur Astronomy Digital VoiceNet, all separate words, and we will make sure you get connected to our Facebook group. And if you would like, you can post a question about getting started in astrophotography. So some of the things we'll need to know is the kind of telescope you're using and whether it has tracking ability. Now, one of the challenges with astrophotography is tracking. And if you're using a telescope, it's more difficult to take long exposures of deep sky objects. Now, for the moon and the planets, it's not as bad. But for galaxies, nebula, star clusters, and things like that, it's a little more challenging. Now, you can get wide field shots with a DSLR camera on a tracking mount. And you can spend about $400 on a tracking mount for a DSLR camera. And if you have like a 50 millimeter or 100 millimeter lens, it doesn't do too bad. So, but if you'd like to ask this question, we can definitely respond to your question with some various links to products and tips and things like that that you can use to do astrophotography without having to spend a lot of money. So back to you there, Greg, in 9AGC and 8XE.
Okay, hopefully I left a big enough gap there for everything to reset. Well, I've got a 10-inch Meade Smith acid rain I've had for 25 years. Started doing astrophotography with film. I got frustrated with the tracking aspect of it, and gave up and put it back in the box, and haven't had it out all that time. So I understand that issue incredibly much, and hoping that digital makes life a whole lot easier for tracking and for doing multiple exposures and all that kind of stuff. So awesome. I will go check into the website. I'm actually on your QRZ page that has some links on it, and go see if I can get somebody who can steer me in the right direction. I really appreciate having fun with you guys. It's a wealth of information. I really enjoyed the comments tonight in my AG.
All right, Greg. Well, I will say a warning to you is that this net has, in the past, contributed to the draining of one's bank account. So we've had a few people buy new equipment based on their discussions on this net. But hopefully we won't drain it too much. If you look on Facebook and join our group, and you ask the question, we'll have a lot of people that can answer you, because we have some astrophotographers, observers, and just folks that are willing to help out on the Facebook group. So, and thank you for joining the net tonight. We appreciate it. Hopefully you'll be here more often. We definitely like to help those who are willing to part with their money. We can help you with that. But we can also help you be a better astrophotographer or a better observer. So thanks again, Greg, for joining us. Let's pass it to Bill, KB9, ZKA, and 8XE. Go ahead there, Bill.
Yeah, I was thinking about, we have our LX90 that we bring out when we're doing some serious looking at the galaxies and stuff. With the photography part, my son took his cell phone adapter off his smaller scope and stuck it on the piece of the LX90 and had his iPhone on top and trying to take the picture. The problem is you have to hit the button to make it take a flash picture. Not flash picture, but a picture. And sometimes you get movement of the lens or blurriness. And here's my daughter comes in and goes, "Oh, don't touch the thing. Use your Apple Watch that triggered a picture." And she did that, and oh my God, the pictures are coming out crystal clear. No vibration at all. If anybody tries using their cell phones, they got an Apple phone, and you got an Apple Watch, you got the perfect trigger, wireless trigger. So, anyways, that's all I have for tonight. But that's all. We're doing a lot of stuff. KB96A.
Yeah, using the Apple Watch to trigger the phone, that's a good idea because, as you kind of mentioned, when you're trying to click on the camera, especially at a long focal length with an LX90, I think you have an 8-inch, you said, and also, Greg, you have a 10-inch, so you don't want to be touching the phone when you're trying to take a picture because it will jiggle the mount. And at a long focal length, like with a 10-inch or with an 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain, it can cause vibrations. So, but my recommendation, if anybody wants to get started in astrophotography, you can get a mount or a connector between your DSLR camera and a Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope, and that works great for the moon pictures or planets. Or if you have a solar filter, you can take pictures of the sun. The problem is for dimmer objects like deep space objects, it gets more difficult, and you have tracking errors and things like that. So my recommendation, anytime you want to get started in astrophotography, is just use your DSLR camera with the stock lens and take some pictures. There's the rule of 500 that you can look up on the internet that can help you take wide field shots on a fixed tripod. Now, if you want to have something that is tracking, we can spend about $400 to $500 to get a tracking mount. That will work for a DSLR camera and the stock lens. And that does a very good job at taking some pictures. But it's very wide field. It's not close up. All righty, let's go to our next station, Frank, 80HGI. Frank, it is so good to hear you in there, buddy. We'll pass it to you. This is N8XE Net Control for the Amateur Astronomy Digital Voice Net on the Quadnet Array. Go ahead, Frank. KD0HGI and 8XE. Frank, are you still with us, or did you already go to bed? Frank might have went to bed, or he's using the Yaesu wires. Don't know if it's connecting properly or not. So, anyways, we are at the end of our first round of discussion here on the Galaxy hunting season topic. So I will go ahead and try to answer the knowledge question. If I recall, the knowledge question is, Uranus was discovered in 1781, and I know that the astronomer that discovered it was William Herschel, and Bob mentioned that, or the knowledge question is, what important event is happening in 2033? I am going to take a guess and say that it's the second or third orbit of Uranus since its discovery, and I'll say that it was discovered in, if I remember correctly, the constellation of Capricorn. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's my answer. It's the second or third year of Uranus since its discovery. That's my guess. I did not look that up on the internet. So, all right, let's pass it to Bob at the top of our list, NAGU. And 8XE, go ahead.
N8GU. Well, once again, you are the wizard of everything astronomical. Not the second, but it is the third orbit. Interestingly, an Earth year is 365 days. It takes us 1 year to orbit the Sun. Uranus takes 84 years to rotate a complete orbit around the Sun. And in the year 2033, that will be 252 years after the discovery of Uranus in the year 1781. And in the year 2033, Uranus will have completed its third orbit around the Sun since its discovery. Congratulations to N8XE, back to net control from N8GU.
You know, Bob, I did not know if it was the second or third, because I didn't remember how many years it takes for Uranus to orbit the Sun. That's why I said 2 or 3 years. So looks like I was pretty darn close. Yeah, it's an interesting story how Uranus was discovered by William Herschel. But what is even more interesting is how Neptune was discovered. It was not discovered like Uranus was with a telescope. Neptune was discovered by mathematics. So it's pretty interesting. I did a talk not too long ago, but I did a presentation on this net about how Neptune was discovered via mathematics. So pretty neat. So, Bob, any other final comments before we pass it on to the rest of the net? N8GU, N8XE.
Well, I'm going to start making a list. You know, I have that really great app for my phone called Sky Pro. I think that's what it's called. I don't want to give the wrong information, so let me look it up real quick. It is Sky Safari Pro. I have the Sky Safari Pro, and I'm going to look up the galaxies there, and I am going to start hunting galaxies. It'll be interesting to see what I will be able to track with my 15 by 70 binoculars. Now, I did look at Andromeda this past year, just to take a look at it, because it's only 2.5 million light years away. It's like a next door neighbor. And it is exceptionally difficult using a pair of binoculars trying to find a galaxy, even with me using the my tripod, because you have to kind of figure out where you are in the sky by looking at other constellations, other stars, and then moving the binoculars around. I know that it was a lot easier when I had my Celestron 6-inch telescope that was computerized, and when I wanted to know where a deep space object was, I just dialed it in, and it found it automatically, and it was extremely accurate. But it's more of a challenge when you are using binoculars or even a telescope that is manually operated. And as you mentioned, these things are moving. Well, everything's moving. We're moving, our solar system's moving, the galaxy's moving, and so it gets to be quite a chore doing it freehand. Back to net control from N8GU.
Well, I'll mention that, of course, everything's moving as you mentioned, but our challenge here on Earth is that the Earth is moving, and that's what makes things challenging to find. And once you find it, it will drift out of view if you're not counteracting the Earth's rotation. So, as you said, everything's moving, but 99.99999% of why it's moving is because the Earth under our feet is moving. So, but your 15 by 70 binoculars are more than adequate to find most of the brighter galaxies in the sky. So I wish you luck, and you'll have to give us a report on how you fare with the binoculars doing some galaxy hunting. So, all right, let's pass it on to Dave at W84GUD and 8XE. Go ahead, Dave, with your final comments.
Okay, Jason. Nothing else really to report here. As I said, we're just hoping to have some opportunities, maybe by the fall, to get out and get out to some dark sky sites, and maybe actually try some smaller places in western Maryland, and be able to actually look at some things rather than just read about them. I guess I have one other comment. I did participate or watch a webinar today that was offered by AARP, who in cooperation with the University of Connecticut, they've been running these webinars you can sign up for, and it was really interesting. They had a astronomer from NASA. I guess she's a professor at maybe University of Connecticut, but she has a lot of affiliation with NASA on solar things, and in particular the effect of things like coronal mass ejections and that kind of thing on electronics, and causing the aurora and that kind of thing. She had some really interesting slides that presented some information about the sun and their theories on what causes sunspots and what causes the various magnetic twists and things that go on, and how they think that some of the energy from the sun is getting passed up to the corona and causing it to get very hot. A number of things I had not seen before, which was really fascinating. So that was sort of my highlight for today. But that's all from Maryland. Had a nice day today, good weather for a change. So 73 to everybody. Stay safe.
Oh, fine business on that, Dave. I did not know the AARP had classes like that. I think that's awesome that they are providing that. And the sun is fascinating to study, and you don't need a lot of equipment to study the sun. And of course, as amateur radio operators, we're very interested in the sun and the things that the sun does to our ionosphere. So that's pretty fascinating. So thank you for talking about that there, Dave. And if they have links to these classes, I don't know if you have to be part of the AARP to participate in them, but if you have links and things like that for the Facebook group, please feel free to post them. All right, let's pass it on to W9, BFC, and 8XE. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jason. Not much to add this time around, but wanted to say great net tonight. Rock solid as always, and hope to hear everybody next week. Back to net from W9BFZ.
Hey, Dave. Well, you have to give us an update on your progress getting the telescope out when the weather cooperates. And I know that you're at a darker site than where you were previously, so hopefully you'll be able to get the telescope out and do some really cool observing, and we are looking forward to future observing reports from you. I need to start doing that myself. In fact, I have a little 66 millimeter refractor from William Optics that's called a Zenith Star, and I got the focuser fixed on that, so I'll be using that a lot more because it's a really good telescope to just grab and go, kind of like an amateur radio station. You have a grab and go amateur radio station. So I have a grab and go telescope set up that is fun to observe with. So converted an old camera bag to be my grab and go telescope setup. So hopefully I'll be doing the same here in the near future. Let's pass it on to Greg, N9 AGC and 8XE. Go ahead with your final comments.
Okay, N9 AGC I2, I'm looking forward to finding some dark skies. They certainly are not around in the Cleveland area. So when we get the motorhome going here, when the weather changes and the virus goes away, I'm hoping to find some dark skies out west and maybe go down to the desert and go out in the middle of somewhere and find some really dark skies. I do have one other question. I noticed you have made several comments about how going through wires seems to be causing issues. What other ways are there of accessing the net besides going through wires?
Actually, N9 AGC and 8XE, you were about ready to say something about going through wires.
Yeah, you had made comments about having difficulties with wires. What's the other way of accessing the net besides wires? Over.
Okay, well, there are several ways you can access the QuadNet. I don't have the details. Actually, I can bring it up here. But you can use DMR. In fact, that's what I'm using, and a lot of people like to use that to access QuadNet. You can also access QuadNet via ICOM's D-Star, and I believe you can also access it via, what is it called, P25 or something like that, and I may forget some of the other methods. But, yeah, the only challenge with wires is I think that if folks are too quick on the trigger on transmit, or they don't leave enough room between transmit and receive, it can cause some problems. So if you're using wires right now, you're coming in just fine. So I think it's mostly if people are too quick on the trigger to transmit, and when they drop and somebody comes up too fast, they can cause some problems. So if you're using wires tonight, you're coming in just fine.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Because our local DMR repeater, the net is not available through it. For some reason, the operator is having trouble getting it linked, so I cannot go through DMR. I have to go through wires. It's my other choice. And there are no D-Star repeaters anywhere in our area. D-Star seems to be a dead animal around here, so cool. All right, well, I do appreciate all the information. I've learned a lot. I love this group. I'm glad I stumbled across and found it. And I will be on the website looking for some information about astrophotography. I do appreciate for all the help, N9AG.
Well, Greg, I tell you what, I'm glad that you joined this evening, and looking forward to having you join in the future. Something else you might want to check out is if you're willing to drive a couple hours from Cleveland, maybe a little more than that. You can go down to the Hocking Hills region of Ohio. There's the John Glenn Astronomy Park, and I've been trying to go down there when it's clear, do some astrophotography. If you ever want, just post something on the Facebook group, and we can totally meet up at the John Glenn Astronomy Park to do some discussions and to show you how things work and show you what I do when I do astrophotography. So, but anyways, thanks again for joining to this evening. Let's pass on to Bill, KB9ZKA and 8XE. Go ahead with your final comments.
And you know, the other day, my son was looking out and goes, "Hey, Dad, guess what? It's clear outside." And too lazy to get the telescope out, but I was messing around with my old 35 millimeter. Also I used to have bought the original one in 1980, the X700, and just kept adding pieces. And I got all the zoom scopes and everything else for the lenses, and I grabbed the tripod and all ran outside, and I had the big long zoom lens. And I'll tell you what, you don't want to spend money, but you've got these cameras laying around with the accessories. They're pretty good for actually looking up at the stars and stuff. Worked for me that night, and we were just laughing our butts off because we had no use for it anymore because 35 millimeter, you can get the film and get it processed, but it costs so much compared to the new digital ones. You just take and just eliminate the ones you don't like and just put the other ones up on your own printer. But I still like the old 35 millimeter, and to be able to use it for some good reason made it pretty nice. Anyways, everybody have a fine one. This was a fantastic net tonight. A lot of information. KB9ZK.
Well, I tell you, there are some folks out there that use rifle scopes. They have a rifle and they have the scope, and I've heard that they'll just take their rifle outside and point it up in the sky and look through the rifle scope, and you can see some pretty interesting things. But maybe it'd be a lot easier if you took the rifle scope off. Of course, you have to realign it when you get it back on there if you use your rifle a lot. So that's another thing. Spotting scopes work. But I tell you, if anybody doesn't have anything to look at the sky with, like a telescope or anything, go to Walmart and pick up a cheap pair of Bushnells for $35. You can get a pair of 10 by 50 Bushnells or 8 by 40s or 8 by 42s. They work too. But you can see a lot of interesting things up in the sky with a pair of binoculars. So, well, let's see if Frank is back. I don't know if he is or not. KD0HGI and 8XE. Go ahead there, Frank, for your final comments. I think Frank's smart. He went to bed already. Frank is an old-time member of this group, and when I say old-time, he's been here since the start. But I do know that he works late, and when he gets home, he likes to check in, and sometimes he just goes to bed. But anyways, you'll notice that we went a little longer than 10 after the top of the hour. The Afterham Nation net operates every other week now, so I knew that they were not operating tonight, so went ahead and let the net run a little longer tonight. But just as a reminder, the Afterham Nation net happens every other week, not this week, but they'll be back next week at 10 after the top of the hour. And they do a great job on that net, and so I encourage everybody listening to participate in their net as well. So before we close the net, let's see if anybody else would like to check in and out real quick for the log. This is N8XE, net control for the amateur astronomy digital voice net here on the wonderful Quadnet Array.
This is N6WY, November 6 Whiskey Yankee, for a quick check-in.
Alrighty, N6WY, got you checked in. This is N8XE. Thanks for checking in and out before we close down the net.
Thank you. I was just playing around with Quadnet and looking at DMR Plus and see if I want to go through the programming and set my hotspot up for just DMR Plus. It looks kind of interesting. Right now I'm coming in on Brandmeister N8XE. This is N6WY.
Well, it's working great. Got you checked in. No drops or anything like that. I'm looking on the dashboard, and you are coming in just fine. In fact, 0% BER or bit error rate and 0% loss. So you're coming in just fine to the QuadNet via Brandmeister. So welcome to the net, and hopefully we get you to check in next week. Anybody else would like to check in and out before we close the net down this evening? This is N8XE. Alrighty, so nothing heard, so at this time we'll go ahead and close the Amateur Astronomy Digital VoiceNet. I'd like to thank everyone who participated this evening or checked in and out, listened only. I'd also like to thank the administrators of the QuadNet system. As a reminder, the Amateur Astronomy Digital VoiceNet meets every Wednesday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern. That is both for Daylight Savings Time and Standard Time. And that is also 2 a.m. UTC when we are on Standard Time, and 1 a.m. UTC when we are on Daylight Savings Time. I look forward to next week's topic. We're going to be talking about exploring Mars with robots. So I saw something on Facebook that says Mars is the only planet that we know of completely populated by robots. So we're going to be talking about the Perseverance mission to Mars. We're also going to be talking about some of the previous missions and how awesome it is that we are exploring Mars. So that's our topic for next week. So we now return the QuadNet Talkgroup back to normal operations. This is N8XE, November 8 X-ray Echo. My name is Jason, and I'm located just outside of Columbus, Ohio, in a suburban town called Hilliard. 73, everyone. And in the words of Jack Horkheimer, keep looking up.